way, he had a point, you know. I'm not really against him, I'm not really for him. I just, you know.
What was his point?
Well, to protect himself from, in a natural environment from destruction and radiation and things like that.
He destroyed the goddamn thing that would tell us if a power plant is going to be built here or not.
Yeah.
That thing would tell you if it was, the air current was right or not.
I feel that he put a lot of thought into what he did, and that he was trying to represent a lot of people.
I don't think it's right.
You don't?
No.
Why don't you feel it's right?
Well, because I think he did wrong by doing it.
I was glad to hear it myself.
You were?
Yeah.
Townsfolk, those that are aware of what reactors can do, were sort of for his action, morally.
I don't like him myself. I don't like him, but that was nothing to do. Let's knock off that big tower. I don't like nuclear plants myself. I hate them, but what are you going to do?
On September 17th, 1974, the trial of Sam Lovejoy began before a jury and Judge Kent B. Smith in Franklin County Superior Court. Admitting that he had toppled the tower, he intended to present evidence showing his right, in his words, his duty, to take such action.
I had to lay out to them, 1, the health dangers, 2, the fact that I had no recourse, and that 3, therefore, the only way that I could confront this society was to destroy a certain kind of property, a very special kind of property, this tower, and then I had to walk into court and say to those people, this man is not guilty of bad conduct. This man should be lauded for trying to stop an infernal machine. And so in my opening statement to the jury, I said to the jury, look, Sam Lovejoy does not care about his own existence. That the existence of Sam Lovejoy means nothing in comparison to future generations and in comparison to those real live people sitting in that jury box who had to confront themselves and say, I have grandchildren, and I will have great-grandchildren, and I might die, but I'll have great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren. And all those people are going to be hung under a cloud, a dismal cloud. And I just had to tell people that the raw gamble that was being handed to the citizens of Franklin County and ask them if they wanted to send Sam Lovejoy to jail for 5 years when they confront his act with the nuclear power plant reality, the concept of jail, should this person go to jail.
Lovejoy soon put himself on the stand in his own defense. An attorney, Mr. Thomas Lesser, led him through the story of his life, tracing the long road that led Lovejoy to the Montague Plains that night. Was there one single thing, personally or in writing, that influenced you the most in your decision to topple the tower? Yes. Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that was? A little 4-year-old girl named Sequoia. I mean, it's like an existential question. I mean, who is Sam Lovejoy? Just Sam Lovejoy, a 27-year-old human being. Who is he to tip over a tower and stop a plant and be outraged? I kept saying to myself, is it me? Who am I? Do I have the strength, the responsibility? Do I have the right? Going back and forth constantly. But it was impossible for me not to tip over that tower and live in a house with 2 young children who had no control over their own lives. As his first witness, he called the author of Poisoned Power, Dr. John Gofman.
I was quite interested in this trial, and I felt that I have a moral and social obligation to testify at his trial. The issue is one of the greatest moral, social, and ethical issues of our times and of all times. And that is why I felt it imperative that I indicate my willingness to be here.
Although the judge listened to hours of compelling testimony from Dr. Gofman, he decided to withhold the testimony from the jury. Lovejoy next called Dr. Howard Zinn, professor of political science at Boston University, to testify on the history of civil disobedience.
Well, if my trial testimony had an essence, I like to think it did, it was about the necessity of civil disobedience in times of danger to life and liberty and health. and how historically in the United States we have seen many, many times how the ordinary institutions of government, those hallowed things presented to us in the 4th grade as the 3 branches of government, are really very inadequate in protecting us, as we've seen from the number of wars we've engaged in, from the number of people who have died in industrial accidents, from the number of people who have been exploited in this country by corporations. These governmental institutions have not been very adequate to protect people, and from time to time, when grievances became too deep, groups of people had to go outside the machinery of government, had to break the law, had to commit civil disobedience in order to dramatize something that was happening. This was done by the labor movement. It was done by black people at various points in our history, and before the Civil War and the Underground Railroad, in recent years in the Civil Rights Movement. It's been done by women in protesting against inequality. And it seemed to me that after the most recent acts of civil disobedience, that is against the Vietnam War, maybe the time is right now for people to look closer to home at the dangers to our lives posed by corporate control of our lives.
Well, civil disobedience has been with us for a great many centuries. And I think one could go back into Christianity or other religions and find a great deal of civil disobedience. The difficulty with it is where you draw the line. What's right for you and what you believe is right for mankind, you may not share with me, and I may not share with you. I may not like your lifestyle. I may decide that where you live is endangering me, and I may go over and put a match to it and say, burn it down. I'll be very careful to go when there's no one home, but it would be, I think, wrong of me to do that, and I think perhaps it's wrong to destroy private property. I think there's plenty of opportunity for a full airing of this plant without having toppled that tower. And I do want to say that that is a very private opinion from an individual. My company has been very careful to take no stand on this and did not prosecute Mr. Lovejoy and did not appear in court. This was an action with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, so that is a private opinion. Very difficult line, civil disobedience. Good for Gandhi, but perhaps not good for then Adolf Hitler.
The process really has gone on for 100 years. That is, as soon as we began to have in this country what you call an industrial revolution, as soon as you began to have mines and mills and steam, and as soon as the companies began wiping out the forests, and as soon as they began pouring wastes into the rivers, we began to have an environmental problem, just the beginnings of it, but didn't pay much attention to it. And civil disobedience was directed at other things. Now, the enormity of what they are doing to us, the very air we breathe, the very water we drink, the very space we occupy, and now with the special dangers of atomic radiation and our kids and leukemia and all of that, the time is right for people who are against this to really do their act of protest for all of those people who in the past 100 years were not able to feel the issue deeply enough or did not have the capacity or the ability to do anything about it.
Civil disobedience or justification or a strong belief in what you were doing, therefore you're justified in breaking the law. I don't think there's just there's no basis for it in law, and there cannot be any basis for it in law. And there are some that believe that I have the right to do it and I should not be penalized for doing it. Well, I think that statement in and of itself shows that there's no place in the law for that type of defense.
The law is not a holy thing. I remember and Dan Berrigan broke the law, and they interviewed his 80-year-old mother, and they said, oh, what do you think about your son? What do you think about him breaking the law? I guess they thought an 80-year-old woman would have 80 years of respect for the law behind her, and she'd give them the right answer. And Dan Berrigan's mother said, it's not God's law. And she had it there. The law is made by very mortal people, very limited people, very opinionated people, and people who have very special interests. They make the law, they tell us what the law is, and then they act as if it's holy writ. So, it's not a terrible thing to break the law. I'll make the statement as simply as I can. Far more violence to human life has been done in human history by people obeying the law than by people breaking the law. The greatest acts of damage to human beings have been done in conformity with the law, in conformity with government edicts and government decrees. The greatest harm to people has been official harm, not the harm done by ordinary citizens.